But I had a lovely moment with a woman in our garden, our community garden. I was brushing hands, sweeping around the pond, and I noticed this woman walking around. And she came over to me and just said, "Oh, it's lovely, isn't it?" And I thought she meant the weather. I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's a nice morning." She says, "No, I mean the garden." And I was like, "Oh, right, cool." And I told her the story. And she said, "Do kids come? Do the schools come?" And I said, "Yeah, every Friday the kids come. They've got this like Gladesmore gardening crew, and they come and we plant food and all this kind of stuff. And they do ecological surveys and all this stuff." And she says, "Brilliant. My granddad would have loved this place. He was a gardener up north." And she had a lovely Lancashire accent, and which made it even more endearing. And he always believed that every child deserves a chance to be wild. And she said, "It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, in here, nature's the leveller. In here, we're all the same." And it really just sort of said to me, my whole thing is, no matter what you believe, no matter where you're from, it's like we can all connect with nature, basically. And she said she used to bring kids from rural spaces into cities, and the kids wouldn't really, they'd be confused, well, where are these people's front gardens, where, you know, everything's very crammed in, but they'd recognise the trees, and they connect with, and, you know, I just think that's the fundamental thing. I think we're all clamouring for a nature connection, and I think that's what's so exciting about cities and bringing that idea of art and music into it. Cities are like a forum. I think they should be the exciting thing where ideas are thrown around and people challenge each other, and then hopefully that makes people more forward thinking about how we deal with landscape generally, and those things ripple out.
Okay. Do you have anything to add before?
I just would say I think it's coming, and I think, like Steve says, we're all doing it, and the more we do it, the more it will grow, without making a pun.
Yeah, well, I think, again, just last thing on that one, and we'll come to this lady here. Yeah, I remember having a chat with, like I said before, Baroness Brown of the Climate Change Committee, and her words, just don't wait for government. You just need to crack on. And the thing is, as well, is that there are, you know, probably a lot of people in this room that have got quite large space or a bit of an area of their garden that's a bit neglected, they haven't got time to get to. You know, loan it out to a neighbour, a community. You know, let somebody else come in and help into that space. And I think what everybody's saying here is the more you inspire people, the more you get questions asked upline. John, you and I have had many conversations about the fact that people only get to think that they're only allowed to have shrubbed, basic, boring gardens because they've never been shown anything else. So it's for us as the gardeners. And there's 23 million or 30 million gardeners. 30 million gardeners or 23? But let's say 30 million gardeners. For me, if we're saying we're a gardening nation, half the nation has got their fingers in soil. So you go and speak to one other person who hasn't, and there you go, the nation's got their hands in soil. So we can do things on a very local level that does make a difference. Okay, we had a question here, my dear. Thank you.
Less of a question and more of a sort of observation, really. And I love what you're doing, Steve, and I love the way you talk about what you do. And there's something to be said for not waiting for permission, that we can just get on and do these things. And I think there's also an opportunity to redefine what we mean by the commons. And, you know, you talking about the kind of urban environment, reclaiming some of those spaces as our commons. I mean, we always thought of the commons as rural spaces that were common ground, essentially, that common people, ordinary people could use. But actually it's an opportunity to redefine what we mean by the commons and what's common to all of us.
I think that's really interesting. It's something that we're thinking about more and more. Is we've discovered the term urban frontiers. Like there's new types of land in cities that are, it's like post-industrial spaces, areas that are just derelict, and it seems like they're all. I keep going to these places to photograph them. We're writing a book at the moment, and I want to put these places in the book. And every time I go to photograph them, they've all been cleared and they're about to be developed. And no doubt it's going to be housing or, you know, more flats. And we're all. This is the thing. I just sit in my hometown. I go back there now. I barely recognise the city centre because it's all high-rise buildings, and it's easy to understand. It's not something I really understand. The kind of the commodity of, like, you know, we need housing and it makes money. And there's this amazing old building in Derby that when I was a kid, it was like a ghost just on the way to the city centre. It was somewhere I first started taking pictures. It was an old railway sort of yard, and it was a huge brick building, beautiful building. And it was never anything was done with it, and over the past couple of years, it's all been stripped out. It's going to be housing, offices, gyms. I think probably a nail salon or two, and it feels like you're missing a trick. I don't know where the money is in making these things community centred, and maybe it isn't there yet, and it's an easier sell. You know, for the general public of Derby, like, it's an amazing thing that's happening to that building because it's just been derelict for years. But I think we're missing something. It's almost like a race to find these. What can we actually do with these spaces? Like what we've done in Tottenham. Like, we've had amazing support of that space because it's already had a life before it. It's already protected as well. It's a heritage thing. So yeah, I think it's a really good point. That idea of common ground is something we've started using more and more. There's a whole history behind that. The more you look into it, and I think there's opportunities in these neglected spaces to take more initiative and take them back.